Welcome to Sakan Algalradon Presents How to Not Get Killed Season 2, where we focus on the tutorials of the sword forms from the Wheel of Time as interpreted with real Chinese sword movements. This is the second episode where we are including a segment before the tutorial in which we are attempting to amplify the BIPOC voices in our community. As many people have noticed, the BIPOC community in the overall Wheel of Time community is somewhat underrepresented, and we would like to change that. So, with us today is Ebony. She is a mainstay in the Wheel of Time community. She's been around forever. Many of you already know who she is and have seen her and heard her and appreciated her voice. Many of you who are newer to the Wheel of Time online community might not know who she is. So here's an opportunity for you to get to know her. Before we begin, I would like to actually make a correction to what I said last episode when I interviewed Leslie Nerdy. I had said that the diversity and inclusion is important because it opens us up to new perspectives, and that is an important aspect to the diversity. But the most important reason for diversity is because the Wheel of Time is for everyone. And everyone needs to feel like they belong. With diversity, everyone gets to see themselves as part of the community. And that is why diversity is important. And that's why we are trying to get more people to the table from different backgrounds, races, ethnicities, so that everyone feels like they are a part of the family and like they're being heard. Welcome, Ebony. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. So let's just dive right in. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Ebony. I've been reading Wheel of Time since about 2002. I'm a huge fan. I've been to JordanCon a few times. I've got 3 kids, one of which is named Avienda. I've been married for 21 years now, and my husband is also a fan of the book.
So I'm guessing it was not difficult to convince him to name your daughter Avienda.
It was actually his idea.
He is a keeper.
Yes, he is.
The question from there is, are the other 2 children also Wheel of Time named, or?
No, they are older, and I had them before I discovered Wheel of Time. So no.
I guess we'll forgive you then. Although, in fairness, none of my children are named after Wheel of Time characters, so you're ahead of me on that. You have been a mainstay of the Wheel of Time community for a very long time. What would you say, what has been your creative contributions to the WOT community?
I don't know that it's so much creative as it's more of, I've been an ambassador to the community. I admin a Facebook group for Wheel of Time that's got about 25,000 members. And I'm also recently became the new member coordinator for JordanCon, which my job is to welcome all the new people that come each year. So I feel like I'm more introducing the series to a lot of people.
That's a contribution. Related to that question, what would you say is your take or your perspective on the Wheel of Time? What lens do you look at it?
Well, as a person of color, it really stood out to me, the diversity and the fact that skin color really had no significance in the story. It was just that they happened to be different colors, but that didn't make them any certain race, with the exception of the Sea Folk and the Aiel. But they are isolationists, so that's different. But for the most part, that it was a good story that encompassed everybody. And so I look at it as a reader who has not had that opportunity in the past to just read a story and be able to visualize myself as different characters.
That's fair. What is your personal opinion on Robert Jordan's decision to make the desert dwellers be pale-skinned, fair-haired people?
I think it was hilarious because it's just not what you would have thought of. And I think he actually had a great sense of humor when it came to things like that, because he liked to switch things up. He liked to mix up cultures and the way people looked. And I think it was actually a great thing to do because it challenges a lot of people's perspectives.
Personally, I thought it was a little bit sadistic, but what are some of the things in particular that you specifically like about the Wheel of Time, and what are some of the things that you specifically dislike?
I like the diversity. I like the strong female characters. The one thing that I've always taken issue with is, and I take issue with this in most books, is that they tend to only describe the skin color of the people of color. They don't do it with the people who are white, and it makes the default white. So that would be my biggest complaint about the series. But aside from that, probably the Fael getting captured storyline, that kind of is a bit of a long storyline. I know it's good for parents' development, but I will admit sometimes on rereads we do skim through that part.
I don't blame you.
But for the most part, I think it's a great series that I highly recommend to everyone.
Okay, lastly, is there anything that you would like the fandom in general to hear? Tim Ferriss used to ask his guests in his podcast, if you could have a gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, metaphorically speaking, getting a message out to millions or billions of people, what would it say and why? It can be a few words, it can be a paragraph. If it's helpful, it can be somebody else's quote. And are there any quotes that you think of often or live your life by?
As far as the messages I would want to get out to the fandom, it's actually more about the TV series. It's just, remember, this is a different interpretation and a different medium. So it's not going to be exactly how you envisioned it, but come to it with an open mind. Rafe is doing a great job, I think. He's a fan. He's the showrunner and he's a fan. So I think it's going to be a good experience, but I do think we need to be open-minded about it and not expect it to be an exact interpretation of the book. It's not going to be exactly what we read, because I know that's a big concern with a lot of fans. I really want it to do well, and the only way it's going to do well is if the fandom embraces it.
I think you're right. Thank you, Ebony, for joining us. It was a pleasure having you. I hope more fans get to know who you are, and I hope more of the BIPOC members of our Wheel of Time community see this and get encouraged to speak up and join the table.
I thank you for having me. It was a pleasure being here, and I agree. I hope more of them do realize that this is a place where their voices can be heard.
And now, without further ado, let's continue on with the tutorial.
Today we're going to look at bundling straw. Bundling straw is a defense combined with a counter. It can be done preferably with a spin. It has a variation that can be done without the spin as well. The spin adds a little bit of power and speed to it. Doing it without the spin gives you a little bit more stability. The basic movement without the spin is as follows. You bring the sword up and around. So you are blocking a strike coming horizontally across from the side, a strike coming like that. You are blocking and then coming around your head and striking across. We're going to do that from the side so that you see what it's like without the spin. You bring it up, slowly again, up, around, and counter. The counter is not a stab, the counter is a slash across. And that can be done from either dominant stance or reverse stance. Now with the spin, if you remember back to the episode where we did apple blossoms on the wind, this is the same spin. Step, spin, plant. We're going to pair that with this vertical blocking movement. So as you spin, the sword comes around. To practice this at home, continue to practice that same spinning drill that I taught you back in Apple Blossoms on the Wind, and then pair it with this motion, bringing it vertically around your body and then slashing across. Remember to use your waist and slash all the way across. And until next time, try not to get killed.